So I kind of briefly touched about your near-death experience, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about what happened before your near-death experience and what you were doing as far as maybe a career move and things like that, which might have maybe made you think differently after your near-death experience.
Sure. Okay. First of all, I'm a psychoanalyst. So this made my speaking of my near-death experience so much more difficult because there are lots of scientists out there, psychologists, psychoanalysts, and such that might think that this is kind of unprofessional, not very serious, or whatever. So
And if you
it
could,
took me,
and I apologize, could you tell us a little bit about what a psychoanalyst does?
yes, psychoanalysis is a branch of psychology.
Okay.
It Freud, Sigmund
Mhm.
Freud, it was the founding father of psychoanalysis. And it's basically a kind of psychology school discipline, which centers on free association, on dream interpretation, and, for example, the Freudian slips, which are very famous.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we work with people and try to help them reach the main reason of why they are having a problem in their current life. Back in 2018, everything was good for me. I was having a pretty stable time in my life. Nothing extraordinary was happening. I didn't have any specific like feelings or thoughts in my mind, or in my life that you could say, well, this and this was going on, and maybe that triggered my near-death experience. No, nothing like that. I was in a perfectly stable point in my life. And I started having these health issues related to my uterus. And the doctor said, well, it's time to remove it. So the risk of getting cancer would be diminished.
Okay.
So I accepted, and he said, okay, you're going to have a major surgery performed. It's called a hysterectomy, and we're going to remove your uterus and the cervix and your ovaries. And well, you're going to be in hospital for about 5 to 7 days.
Okay.
So I was okay. That's okay with me. This was my fourth or fifth surgery, undergoing general anesthesia. And this is also something that I like to point out because people have said, well, why this time? Why, if you had undergone surgery previously with general anesthesia, you had never had this kind of experience. Why now?
Right.
And I don't know why, but I think there definitely is a reason why, and I will get to this point later on.
Okay.
So I check into hospital. I undergo my surgery, my procedure, and that's when everything happens. I find myself at the end of this black hallway.
And I don't mean to cut you off there, but was it something that happened as soon as you realized you were put under? So as soon as you were under, you just appeared in a hallway, or did you feel yourself kind of move from your body at all?
I didn't feel myself move from my body.
Mhm.
I didn't have this kind of out of body experience that many people have where they see themselves floating,
Mhm.
and no, nothing like that. I just suddenly saw myself at the end of this corridor, at the end of this hallway,
Okay.
and I knew that everything behind me was dark, was
Okay.
obscure. And in front of me, I saw this whole landscape, so to say, and at the behind the silhouettes that I was seeing, I suddenly started seeing all these silhouettes of different people, men, women, children, teenagers, old people, young people. I could see people with canes in their hands,
Really?
walking canes, yeah. And I could see toddlers, I could see babies, I could see old women, but all of them were in a silhouette form. I could not distinguish any facial features at all.
Okay.
And behind them, as if you were looking at a sunset, but instead of the sun, there was this white light.
Okay.
Very, very bright, but it did not hurt your eyes to see it,
Okay.
to look at it directly. It kind of had this pull. It felt like it was very welcoming, and I was suddenly overwhelmed with the sense of peace, tranquility, serenity, love. Nothing hurt, nothing worried me. There was no negativity at all, no negative feelings, no negative thoughts. And I had the feeling that there would never be any feelings of hunger or suffering of any sort. So I was like captivated by this light, and I hadn't realized that in front of me was this man, and he had me grabbed by my forearm in this kind of manner.
Okay.
And I suddenly realized that there was this man in front of me, and he was the only person that I could see clearly his facial features and clearly see him as I can see anyone else.
Okay.
He was Caucasian with brown beard, mustard, and hair, brown eyes. His nose was kind of big, but his expression, his facial expression, was one of complete kindness, of love. It was, if you could see his face, everything that he transmitted was love and peace. And he spoke to me like telepathically. He told me, welcome, I'm going to be your guide in this place. And that's when I realized that he was grabbing me by my arm very, very gently. And I thought to myself, finally, I'm going to rest. Finally, I'm going to be at peace. Okay. And I was about to step over this kind of imaginary line that divided that plane of existence with the one I was coming from, when I felt a sudden pull from behind. And as if I describe it like a vacuum kind of feeling, as if I were being vacuumed back. And well, there was nothing I could do. So I was being pulled back, and I opened my eyes. I was in the OR, and I heard this surgical nurse say, "Doctor, we have her. She's here. She opened her eyes. We have her back." Wow. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I heard the physician with a very tense voice say, "Okay, get her a bed in intensive care, like stat." So I was confused, but the first thing that came to my mind was, why do you pull me back? Why do you
Mm-hmm.
bring me back here? I wanted to
Right.
stay there. I wanted so much to stay there. And I was really upset because of that. So I drifted back to sleep. And next thing I know, I wake up and I'm in intensive care unit with all these wires and things coming out of me and all these beeping sounds around me. And a couple of hours later, the physician comes by to do his rounds and he tells me, please don't ever pull a stunt like that on me again. And I was like, what did I do? I mean, I have no idea what had happened.
Yeah.
And he said, your blood pressure plummeted. We could not stabilize you, and we were about to lose you.
Wow.
This guy, this physician, is a friend of mine.
Okay.
We were in elementary school together and in junior high together. And so we know each other from quite a time back. And he said, you had me really, really scared. I really thought you were not going to make it. So I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. Okay, whatever. After I leave hospital, 5 days after that, I talked to this about what happened to me with my husband. And he says, I saw your friend come out of the OR a couple of times and he was white as a sheet. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew it wasn't something good. So now that you tell me this, it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to make sense to me as well, because all those days in the hospital, well, I didn't really give it a second thought about everything that happened. But once I was back home, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I just had a near-death experience.